in the context of masculinity, though, and the context of being a father, it's like you said, though, like, what do I model for my kids? You know, John F. Kennedy, Robert Kennedy went out and said what they believed. They died because people didn't agree with them. Like, that is, in some ways, the pinnacle of masculinity, of being a strong father figure. It's tragic, but Martin Luther King, right? It's tragic, but these are men. I mean, those are, you know, like their lineage understands the sacrifice and how strong of men they were. You could see it. There's how many of the King lineage do you see on news channels that still carry his message from the decades ago, right? That's how strong a movement he created as a man. It got him killed. But how do we not represent our positions? And for what? Adam, look, you are already canceled by a portion of the population. Yeah. You're already canceled. So the fear of the rest of the population canceling you, it's ridiculous. We're all already canceled by somebody. So may as well lean into what you want and who you are as opposed to. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Right.
And it represents the right version of you for your kids.
Yeah. And honestly, the right version of me for me, right? Because I mean, it doesn't help to keep your mouth shut. I kept my mouth shut on the military side for a long time too, and it didn't help anything. And finally, I was true to myself, started opening my mouth to my leadership and saying what needed to be said. And you know, I didn't stick around long enough to find out whether or not it made a difference. But at the same point, it made me feel better because at least I was, you know, saying what I thought was going to make things better for my troops, for people around me, for those who come after me, like all this stuff. Like it doesn't, you know, it's helping nobody to keep your mouth shut. But it also helps nobody to shut other people out of what they want to say, right? So the conversation needs to happen. I mean, even if which I don't, disagreed with you on this stuff, I would be willing to bet you would be willing to hear the conversation from the other side and have a debate and go back and forth, and not like, you know, like the whole portion of like the whole cancel thing boggles my mind to begin with. Like, you're already saying, like, what that is kind of saying is I don't have the ability to fight you or back this up with facts, so I'm just going to cancel you. I'm going to shut you up because I don't have the articulation to be able to explain my side anyway. So you just don't even deserve to be on a platform. You don't deserve to be listened to. You don't. I mean, just no. Like there needs to be conversation and healthy debate. And
but it permeates. So I think cancel started around the woke movement, right? So the woke people wanted to drown out all the voices that they didn't agree with because they need to be. It's a kind of the irony of like, you need to be tolerant like me. Like, okay, well, you don't hear it, I guess, but whatever. But then, unfortunately, the other side of wokeism wants to then cancel. Like you're seeing it now with Bud Light, right? Like, I'll be honest, my position is that I don't want to buy Bud Light either because of what, you know, it wasn't even, I'm not a beer drinker. I don't like beer, but it wasn't even about sending a can to the person. I forget the name, but
Dylan Mulvaney.
There you go. It wasn't about the can. It was the marketing exec coming out and saying after that, well, look, all these frat boy, whatever, like essentially saying all of you that have made this company what it is, we don't want you. That's the backlash. That's the backlash. But there is something in me that says, well, look, I'm not a cancel culture guy. I don't believe in it. Are we doing that on the other side of it? But if I'm being completely honest, I agree with it. I agree with like, and you know what? Actually, as I say, talk through it, like, it's not cancel. It's not saying they can't exist. It's just that you're not going to get my money. That's all. Like, you exist. Go ahead. Exist for who you want to exist for. You're just not going to get my money. So there you go. I worked my way through it.
Yeah. And to me, that's free market capitalism, right?
100%.
Not the crony capitalism garbage that we tend to see a lot more now, right? But free market capitalism, like if somebody doesn't agree with what you're doing or they don't like the flavor of your meal, then they're not going to shop there. They're not going to buy stuff from there, right? It's one of the reasons that I don't have anything Disney, right? I don't like that they openly said they want to put things in front of my children that I would prefer to have conversations with them about rather than them have conversations about, you know, and sensitizing them in a way that they think is the right way to go.
What was the movie that just came out? There was a movie that just came out with pronouns, they, them pronouns, and it tanked. It got like 20 million. It was like, you know, like, which is a lot of money, but not compared to the production of what
they
Disney
usually
movie.
do. Yeah.
Right.
I don't remember the name of it, but yeah, it's one of those that, I also am not a fan of somebody saying that, Like, I get the concept of it takes a village, but you're not going to tell me that my kids are anybody but mine. Like, I create the village around my kids. Like, you don't create the village around my kids. It may take a village, but it's my village. Not, it doesn't mean that's the village I live in. It's the village I decide to put my kids in.
Right. Exactly. And that's a great point. Yeah. It's not equal rights to my kids. Yeah. Yes. It's not equal rights to my kids' upbringing. Yep. Exactly. It's like, I've decided you, teacher, can have access to my child for their education. That's the village, not for your activism, but for education. And I've decided that I'm going to live here because this police department, or I'm going to bring my kids to this karate studio, right? Like, that's my village. I created the village around me, but I've assigned roles to each of these folks to outsource a skill or something for my kids to benefit from. It ain't, hey, just like your parents, I can say what I want to you and I can make you believe what I want. Yeah. Like the idea of these laws trying to be passed about, you don't have to tell your parents if you have a gender identity issue and you're 9. And the teacher holds the right to say, ooh, I can't say anything out of privacy. Are you crazy? Mm-hmm. That's my kid.
But yet you have to ask my permission to take my kid to the zoo, right? Like, you have to ask my permission to take them to the zoo, but you have no problem being able to hide that type of stuff. No, I'll bring it. It just boggles my mind. No, it's my kid.
But all of this stuff, like, I feel like we're like you and me are just chatting tangent, like when we met on the flight out of Detroit that time, randomly, same seat, same row, right? It's like
right
row
next to each other,
same flight. Yeah, it was funny. But I really think, I think that, you said before, like, hey, dads are listening to this and maybe their kids are listening to this. And I think about that as I'm talking to you about all of this. Like, what does all this have to do with anything? The person listening to this could be like, son, this guy is a transphobe. And I'm perfectly fine with that. If somebody says that, son, this man is toxic in his masculinity. Fine. That's your prerogative. As a parent, teach your kid what you want to teach them. But that's the point. Represent your voice. That's what a strong father is. This is my voice. This is what I believe. Now, again, Hitler believed things, right? So, I mean, there's bad beliefs that we all agree are probably not the right beliefs. But let's not get lost in the 1%, right? Like, by and large, the majority of us have beliefs that are just within the realm of reasonable, but just different sides of whatever fence that we might be on. But standing up for them, like, this is a 44-year-old now, finally saying that I'm willing to. And, look, I was a corporate guy. You were a military guy. So being public about certain beliefs that my life, my well-being could be impacted by, I guarded it, right? But part of not having a corporation behind me, part of being on my own, I can express myself the way I want to express myself. Like, why the heck wouldn't I? Dude, look, I had a guy on the podcast that I had no idea where it was going to go. He was referred to me. It was a live episode, 2 hours long. His name is Andrew Kibe. He's from Kenya. And he came on and we were going to talk about masculinity. I'm like, oh, great topic. He went down this rabbit hole, man, of like, women don't belong in leadership. I'm like, anywhere? He's like, nowhere. And he's saying how black people are cursed. He's black, very black, dark black, right? Like, black people are cursed. Like, things I don't agree with. And I didn't put the episode up for 3 months for fear of being canceled. But finally I put disclaimers on it, all that stuff. And dude, it's one of the most, I had 200,000 people watch that episode. 200,000 people watched it. And if you go through the comments, there is civil discourse going on between people. He's got some solid points. I think he goes a little too far here. I get what he's saying here. Some people are like, wow, this guy's way too out there. He needs to be checked. And then people kind of come back. It's not like 100% on the level.
Of course.
I admire the guy for standing up and saying what he believes. I agree with some of the principles that masculinity isn't toxic and it's okay to be truly feminine, which might mean that being a mom is what you are. That's what you do. That's feminine. That's okay. You can rainmake anytime you want in your life. But I don't agree with black people are cursed. I don't agree with women don't belong in leadership. That's way too far for me, right? But to put the conversation out there and let others decide, like, it was really, really interesting to see that happen. Like, wow, there's a lot of people that really, really wanted to see what this is all about. And it's just another step of, stand up for what you believe in. This guy's on the extreme side. He's not hurting anybody. He's not going out there and doing anything to women. It's just his beliefs. We had a discussion about it, and it is what it is. But standing up for yourself and what you believe in, man, that's being a dad. That's being a man.
For sure. And I think, honestly, if you kind of look at it, and maybe correct me if I'm wrong, but by you not posting it, you're actually taking away from the ability for people to decide whether or not those 100%. Are good feelings or not.
Selfish. It was
like
fully self-absorbed.
you're just saying, nope, I'm afraid for what might happen to me, as opposed to, hey, this may actually allow conversation to happen and help somebody understand another side of a subject. And that to me is much more important than anything. And I struggle still. And I think I will continue to, but there's times I'm going to struggle. There's times I'm not going to struggle, and we'll see. Hopefully, I overcome that desire